xa u-HIV kwakumandi akumanzanga tu uyazazi ukuba
Tula mama, tula mama, tula mama.
I don't think anybody who was involved in AIDS in the early years had any idea of the scale of what we were going into.
One of the distressing milestones was realization that we had an epidemic that was enormous and really out of control.
You'll commonly hear people talking about 1,500 people infected a day. So far, like 500,000 South Africans by the end of the 90s were being infected each year.
In pregnancy, 1 in 3 women were HIV infected. And so from about 93 to 2003, we just saw a country ravaged by HIV, young women dying, children dying, graveyards, cemeteries, hearses.
On the 17th of August, she gave me a last smile.
We had to adapt constantly our thinking and the scale of the interventions that we had to start to put in place as we went into the millions and millions of people who are infected.
There was this big shift around the mid-90s when the protease inhibitors became available. And I think that's when really the tide, within HIV management came about.
I think for me, the big milestone that followed was the studies on circumcision. 3 trials showing that circumcision reduced HIV incidence really marked a turning point about how we might prevent HIV in men.
My contribution in the early days was, first of all, to investigate the role of antiretrovirals in mother-to-child transmission, and then more importantly is to take what we found in the clinic, in the clinical research facility, into the community.
There was a lot of excitement in Cape Town when we got the first programs going in Khayelitsha and Gugulethu and saw the enthusiasm amongst young women. They really voted with their feet that they could go to a program, take some antiretrovirals and know that they could have a better chance of preventing HIV to their babies.
We were operating in a period of AIDS denialism. We had limited permission. We were under a lot of pressure from the government to stop our rollout.
4,000 children are born to HIV-infected women each year in this hospital.
This came close to a genocide. Just watching these women, these children, these families just succumb to HIV, to die.
There was no ARVs available anywhere. Those that had money could import them maybe from America, but for the person on the street, there was just no medication.
I think it started to turn around in around 2003, 2004, when antiretrovirals started to roll out. People started to take it, they started to get better.
With the Zuma administration, and particularly under the leadership of Dr. Motsoaledi, we've seen a response that's more in keeping with the evidence and the magnitude and severity of the epidemic in the country.
We've got 3.5 million people on treatment. All those people, most of those people would be dead if we didn't have the treatment available. I mean, when was the last time medicine can turn around and say, oh, we saved millions?
We went from funerals every Saturday to really bringing a devastating illness under control and turning it into a chronic, manageable illness.
There's these 2 new drugs which are coming along, which we're testing at the moment, which means the size of the tablet will be smaller than aspirin, and that it'll come right down in cost, and it's much more forgiving. It's just getting safer and better. We now know that if people go onto antiretrovirals and their viral load goes down to undetectable levels in their bloodstream, they won't transmit the virus.
I think injectable antiretrovirals as prevention is, given once a month, is very interesting. I do believe that treatment options are well sorted out.
One of the most significant recent breakthroughs is the identification of these women in KwaZulu-Natal who've developed broadly neutralizing antibodies. they're also very potent.
We're now manufacturing this antibody and we're about to go into human trials. And I'm very optimistic that this will help us lay a foundation for an eventual AIDS vaccine.
We have what we would call passive immunization, and that is the use of neutralizing antibodies that are infused into people to try and protect them against HIV if they get exposed. The other way is what we call active immunization, and this is where you inject an immunogen or a vaccine into someone, and then their immune system develops a vaccine-induced immune response. Both strategies are being evaluated now, and we'll know in 5 years whether they worked or not.
I was part of the famous Caprisa 004, tenofovir gel, which for the first time showed that actually we could prevent HIV infection by using an antiretroviral-based microbicide gel.
We reached a milestone where we found for the first time that the ring containing an antiretroviral agent which a woman can use is moderately preventing HIV infection. This ring releases a product called dapivirine.
We've made huge progress towards an AIDS-free generation, but that's not going to be achieved unless we can prevent infection in adolescent girls and young women between the ages of 15 to 24 years.
At the moment, the estimate is about 1,000 South Africans get HIV every day. That's not an AIDS-free generation for the foreseeable future. And what scares me a little bit about this is it allows health systems, it allows politicians, it allows donors to suddenly go and look for their next big thing.
I think we need to start looking at how do we cure HIV? How do we activate the latent virus in the reservoir? How do we eradicate it from its resting state? How do we eradicate it from its hiding places in the body?
The battle against HIV needs to continue. The research needs to continue on all fronts. The baton is passing on to a new generation of researchers, and South Africa is very well positioned to provide those researchers.
Scientists alone cannot do it. We need partnerships with the community, the stakeholders, international donors, the government. We have to work on this together.
I almost feel like the storybook is half read. We're halfway, but we need to do the second half in much less time. And I'm really hoping that the world will stand with the rest of us to see the end of that chapter.